All right, part two for this 2000 Lexus RX300. You see I have the intake off and the valve covers off. I dug into it a little bit today, did some research and stuff like that. I did check the timing marks on the belt, and believe it or not, it is off about 5 degrees according to the marks. If you take a look down in there, you can see there's a little nib sorry, I guess if you zoom in there. There you go. So you see it says 0, 5, 10, and 15, and there's a little nib on the 10, and there's a notch on the pulley, and they're not quite lined up down there, and that's because it's off just about 5 degrees, which could be due to belt stretch, or possibly whoever installed the belt last didn't quite line it up perfectly. Either which way, I don't think that's the issue for this. I seen another video, watched another video today. There was a guy, I forget the guy's name, but he did a really good video on like same year, make, model car, and his was out a tooth as well. So I was like, okay, well that makes me feel a little better that that's not it. But I did notice, if you look down here, look at all this carbon buildup, guys. Like, this stuff is nasty. But this is the stuff that ruins your variable valve timing system. Like, that gets inside of all your oil passages, starts restricting oil flow. It gets inside your oil control valves. You gotta think too, the oil feed for your controllers here has to go through the cap or the head into a passage inside of the cam itself, and then into the phaser, and then overcomes that spring pressure that's inside the phaser. So like, yeah, if that stuff gets in there, that's going to jam it up too, and could result in a loss of oil pressure or binding or whatever. So not cool. As far as finding the issue, I have not found any red flags yet, which sucks. So I did order 2 pieces. I ordered the camshaft solenoid, and I also ordered the position sensor, camshaft position sensor. So they weren't too expensive, probably about under 150 bucks for both. And then I did find a bunch of things along the way. I don't know if I told you in the last video, but this car was at another shop before it came to me, and unfortunately customer had to dish out a bunch of money for stuff that it needed. I'm sure it needed the stuff, but unfortunately it wasn't really fixed right. And I guess we could go over it and just show you a couple things that happened. But basically, I got tearing into this thing, and right away I noticed that the intake portion that comes down, the upper intake, there's 2 like hex key bolts and 2 studs with nuts, and I found that one of the nuts wasn't OEM, and what had happened is somebody had dropped the factory nut down below the intake where they couldn't get it, so they just took another nut and jammed it on there. Unfortunately, it's the wrong thread, and it's cross-threaded on there, so that's really sad. The next thing that I found was the intake gasket. There was a bunch of dirt and stuff all smushed in between, and they did not replace this. They just reused it, which I wouldn't do. It's multi-layer steel, but you may be able to reuse it, but just change the damn thing. Then I noticed that one of the bolts for the valve cover was missing. One of these were missing, and when I had it up in the air, the thing was leaking oil, and I thought, oh, like maybe they just didn't clean it off or something, but nope, it was right from the spot where the bolt was missing, so that sucks. And then I went to pull the new coils out, because they did coils, plugs, and valve cover gaskets. That's the work that got done. And the first coil that I pulled out was cylinder number 2. That's to the front left corner. And inside the tube is all full of oil. So I pull this out, it's drenched in oil. I'm like, what the heck? Did they not clean it out, or like what happened? So I pull all these out, notice that this one's missing the boot. This was on the back, cylinder 5. And I'm like, oh man, like what is going on here? So then I get looking and I find that this seal is actually torn. And these seals here, you can see like there's little retaining tabs that are pressed into this big cover that gets riveted on. Well, those need to be sort of pried up a little bit, put the seal in, and then tap them back down. And you just go about it carefully and do a nice job, and you don't have a problem. But obviously, whoever did this didn't know. Another thing, if you haven't noticed already, is that, see the difference in these seals? They have put these seals, 3 of them in backwards. So that's not cool either.
Are these guys in there?
Yeah. Trying to think of which is the right way. I feel like I can't remember which way they go. I'll have to look it up, but I think this is the right way. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure this is the right way. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But anyhow, doesn't matter. They needed to know which way they go, right? Obviously, they were put in wrong and damaged. Obviously, the spark plug tube wasn't lined up properly. This thing gets hammered down, whatever, and damaged. So, just absolutely butchered the job. It's unfortunate. Maybe it was some young kid that was doing it first time, doesn't know any better. It is what it is. It's gonna get fixed. And then the last thing was, there's supposed to be silicone and stuff that gets put on here. Everything is supposed to get cleaned off. Obviously, nothing got cleaned. And there's still old silicone from who knows how long ago. Could even be factory maybe. But that's supposed to be cleaned off, and silicone is supposed to be applied to multiple areas where you can see this piece here, this little half moon cutout. See, there. This whole outer piece that gets bolted on, silicone goes there, and the ends of these caps, there and there. But obviously that did not get installed, and the cover got jammed back on. You can see pieces of silicone that have fallen off that are going down into who knows where, and it's stuff like that that gets jammed in the galleries, the oil galleys, and just all over the place. There's chunks of it down in there, and yeah, it just sucks. It's unfortunate that somebody did a crappy job. I did notice there was another bit of a coolant leak down in here, but at some point in time, I don't think that it's related. All the wet coolant that's in there now that you see, it was just a spillage from when I pulled this lower intake off. There's a coolant that runs through that, so. That's basically all I've gotten to today, was just getting this apart and assessing everything and tidying stuff up, and just chatting with the customer, checking the timing and all that stuff. So I'll be getting the parts for it tomorrow. Unfortunately, I can't get gaskets. Tomorrow's gonna be Friday, and then we're into the long weekend over the new year, so it won't be till Tuesday that I get the parts and I'll be able to actually put them back together. I did order the gaskets for the spark plug tubes from Toyota, so we'll be putting genuine parts on it and doing the job right. Everything's gonna get cleaned up. In the meantime, before my parts show up, I'm gonna be testing. I'm gonna try to see if I can test the oil passageways. And another thing that I might do, this thing's in desperate need of an oil change. I think I'm gonna pull the oil pan off and look at the oil pickup tube. And I'm afraid that a lot of this carbon buildup and stuff has been floating around in the engine, and it's such a fine mesh screen on the oil pickup tube that, yeah, it could be like half plugged, I don't know. But if I can figure out what oil passageways to check, I'm gonna try to blow them out with some compressed air and just try my best there. I don't really want to get into removing camshafts, but Master Tech that I was talking to that I used to work with says that there is oil passages through one of these caps. I think it's this big cap, but I'm not sure. I'm gonna do some reading and some literature, see what I can find, and we'll do a part 3 and let you know. We'll figure this thing out and let you know what the fix is. So stay tuned for part 3. We'll catch you on the next one.